Yo, what's going on, everybody? And welcome back to the Part-Time Artist Podcast. And this is episode 204. In this podcast, we learn how we can be a better artist, how we can stay creative ourselves, and we learn from our special guests and their perspective on their music and artist experience. And this episode is chock full of awesome stuff that is going to level up your game, especially if you are considering being a DIY touring artist. I know it's been a long time since I put out a podcast. It's called the Part-Time Artist Podcast, and sometimes us artists, it can be really hard to schedule. It can be really hard because we're doing a million things all at once, so I'm super grateful for the guest that I have today because he was super flexible and he was able to come in and essentially take the spot of somebody that I was having trouble scheduling. So amazing show today. This is a real crash course, I think. And this conversation, I think, is going to be so helpful for those of you that feel like you are struggling right now. And you just feel like maybe isolated, maybe you're alone in the struggle. And this episode and talking to our guest today, I hope it really turns your mind around because you have people around you, including your friend here, Roger, that's doing this. We are fighting the same fight here. So you are not alone, and we're going to learn, hopefully we'll solve or talk about some problems that you're having. We're talking about social media. We're talking about DIY touring. We're talking about working with a record label, and we're also talking about creating and how we're keeping music and being an artist, keeping it a part of our lives. Before we jump into this episode, want to remind you that there are a couple links in the description. There's a link for Sauna Box. If you are like me and you're having, sometimes you have trouble sleeping, you have trouble decompressing, jumping in the sauna is a game changer. You're going to want to use distilled water, but this is something you can set up anywhere. It's like a tent, and it's totally safe from, bad plastic, harmful things in the air. That's why it has the price point that it does, because it's better than those $30 saunas you see on Amazon. Do not get those. You're literally breathing in plastic. This is a safe, awesome sauna that I have in the basement here in Philly. It's a game changer. I sleep like a baby after. It's also a game changer if you're into working out. If you're down at Planet Fitness or whatever. I also have a code for Visible. If you are looking to get a new cell phone plan, if you want something that's like $25 and no questions asked, unlimited data and all that stuff. I was going to say minutes. You guys remember minutes? You guys remember waiting till after 9 p.m. to call people because there was unlimited minutes? Oh, boy. Okay, anyway. Click the link for Visible to get a new plan. And also, I want to let you know that there's a link down there for merch for our podcast guest today. If you're getting in the holiday season and you want to get a jump start on it, you don't want to wait till the last minute, really cool merch items for our guest. We have, sweaters, a poetry book, some cool shirts, even a mug. Great, really cool stuff. And obviously it's supporting our guest artist today. So without further ado, let's jump into the show. All right, I have with me a very, very special guest by the name of Brian, aka a day without love. Brian, thanks for coming on the show.
How's it going? I'm pretty excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, where are you right now? The Mall of America? What's going on back there?
It's a background because I don't want anyone to know what my room looks like. And like my room, it's just kind of like, despite being very open on the internet, there's something I just don't tell people. And yeah, that's one of them.
Wow. I really thought you were out there at the mall because it's the holiday season. You're just trying to get in the spirit.
Yeah.
I know. As soon as it turns November 1st, it's time.
Yes. Yeah.
All the decor comes out. But Brian, you're actually a longtime Philadelphia native that is now in Boston.
Yep. That's for long, but yeah.
Now, I want to know, like, right off the bat, of course, we got to put one against the other. So I would like to know what's one thing, because you've been in Boston for probably a good amount of time, a few years now, right? So
3 years, yep.
What is something, what do they do best? What is something that Philly does better than Boston? And what's something that Boston does better than Philly?
I would say Boston does better having fans with money. And I know that's a wonk answer, but like the reality is like Boston is 7 times richer than Philly. So
yeah.
like there are just opportunities to be able to like just play music. I don't do that just because like I have asthma, so I have to have another job, you know? But like you could be one of those people that just plays music and there's more flexibility in terms of physical security. However, I will say Philly has better recording studios. Philly has
shout out to
bands.
Cart Music.
Yeah, like Philly has a lot more people willing to create, whereas Boston kind of has this like, I'm willing to create, but let me give you 9 months before I make a decision. So like it's a lot faster, if that makes any sense. And yeah.
Interesting. Now, how do you feel like overall music scene wise in that, if that's the case, like what do you feel about the two different music scenes?
Sure. Believe it or not, even though Philly's a bigger music scene, not just by like quality of band, but like population, Boston is more diverse than Philly, believe it or not.
Whoa.
Like, people don't believe that, but it's true. It is a more diverse music city. However, I think there's less happening in Boston. Like something I had to get used to is like shows actually start and end on time, whereas like Philly don't start and end on time. So like that was a bit of a culture shock for me. So like yeah, there are definitely some like hard differences. I definitely think like it's not just the cities; it's also like the states. Like you know, finding a grant like has always been difficult and still is difficult for me, whether I live in Africa, Italy, England, or Pennsylvania. Like no matter where I live, it's going to be hard for me. But I definitely have noticed that there's more grant opportunity in Massachusetts / Boston than there is in Pennsylvania / Philadelphia.
Yeah, that's definitely something I want to talk about in this episode because I feel like you have such a good perspective because you've done so much touring and you've relocated in these East Coast cities, so you know what the vibe is here and you know you can get a sense of the vibe of the whole country. So I definitely want to talk about that. I definitely want to talk about your relationship with social media as well in this episode, and also the different art that you produce. But first, I want to ask, like for me, I am the burning questions for me is going to be about touring. So you just came home a little while ago after touring all 50 states. Wow. First of all, how much of a nightmare was it to book a show in all 50 states and have it even line up?
Yeah, it was definitely a nightmare. And this was like the longest I ever took to book a tour, just period. Like, I started booking the thing like once I got back from Ireland, like last year. Like I think, all right, let me step back a bit. Like, the record is Strange That You Met Before. Digitally, it came out late 2023, like in
Okay.
October 13th, my grandparents' anniversary, right? But I didn't get physical copies till February. So, like, on a physical level, the record is about a year and a half old, right?
Interesting. Yeah.
But on a digital level, it's 2 years and like a month old, right?
Mm.
And I didn't really start touring on the record until like March of 2024. Yeah, that's because like in 2023 it was all local stuff. I played like a Vermont show. I played a New Hampshire show. I played, you know what I mean? And the idea of touring all 50 states originated from my grandfather who died in 2015. He died on November 10th, 2015. And as we're speaking, exactly 10 years ago to this day, I just asked him, like, hey, what are some things you wish you, like, could have done that you didn't get to do? He's like, I wish I saw all 50 states. And, like, you
Wow.
know, I had this deep conversation with him, like, what do you want from me after you go? And he was like, well, one, I hope you tour all 50 states and don't give up on music. And the other two were like, not related to music. It was like, take care of my grandma and don't give up on yourself and always give back. My whole thing was just kind of like, yeah, whatever. I barely have a touring career in 2015.
Right.
But like, after I emotionally recovered from that and started like on my record Sauce, I did start touring. I was like, I had some touring, like I'm going to New Jersey, I'm going to New York, and being from Philly, like that is kind of how it starts for most people.
Yeah.
But like, you know, I was in England and I just had a like a aha like moments of like, hey, I really made it out here coming from Philly, and like I'm not an implant. I was born and raised in Philly. So like I said, if I could do all of the UK and I had to cancel Wales because of a hurricane, why am I doing all of the states? And like I got to do that because of people power. And by that
Mm.
I mean like, you know, people bought my merch, people bought my music on Bandcamp, like things like that. And I was able to make ends meet. And did the same thing with the tour. And like, yeah, it was very stressful. In some states felt like traveling on impossible mode, but it was because of friends I was able to do it. Like Wyoming, there was a music fest. That music fest got canceled. And then because that music fest got canceled, I had some other people that happened to like my music that said, hey, you still got the ticket. We got a show for you in Wyoming. So like,
Wow.
that's just one example, but every state, some states were easy because I had been there a million times. Other states were like, whatever.
Right. Now, what was with that being said, you toured all 50 states. What is, I guess, your knee-jerk, most meaningful memory from that tour? What's the first thing that jumps out?
Let's say like the state that made me feel most at home was Alaska.
Wow. Okay,
Like,
let's unpack that.
yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that like got picked up by the nephew of the Philly fanatic, which is like
Oh my
really hilarious. Shout out Kevin.
Philly is everywhere, dude. Philly is everywhere.
Yeah, because like you know the person that booked me goes like, "Hey, this is Kevin. He's gonna pick you up from the airport," and I see like 610, and I go, "Hey, yo," you know, talking
Wow.
and like, yeah, this guy's cool. And then the person that hosted me happened to know Christina Elise and Kufnats, who are pretty like known Philly acts as well. They're a hip hop and harp act.
Mm.
So I just got a lot of nostalgia moments where I was meeting people from places I had already been. And then secondly, like I grew up eating a lot of seafood with my grandparents, and the seafood there was top notch. The show was top notch. You know, I got to meet people from Alaska as well as natives. So I just kind of felt like that on top of like checking a lot of life boxes, like seeing moose for the first time, seeing whales for the first time, all
Right.
that
Oh
stuff.
wow.
Like, feel like, yeah, this is cool because like I didn't just get a touring experience, I also got a life experience, so
Right.
that felt really good. I got to like talk about all the things I like to talk about, like how does capitalism impact you? How does consumerism impact you? Stuff like that.
Wow. How long do you think you could live in Alaska before you went?
Just 6. Yeah. And that's the sunny side. Like, now keep in mind, that was my best touring experience.
Yeah.
Places I was like, I think the closest to Alaska I could get without it being Alaska is living in Seattle or Portland. So,
sure. Yeah. Not that far off, but still a plane ride. Lastly, before we jump into our first tune here, I want to ask, what is some advice that you could give people that are DIY booking? Like what's like maybe your top 3 pieces of advice after having this 50-state tour?
I would say that your music drama is not unique. Everyone's gone through the exact same thing. Just think like, tour because you have to, not because you're running away. 2, I would say be patient, because like you can't do this out of the jump. You have to like come back to a lot of places again and again and again. And 3, I would say definitely be good at your set before you start spreading out.
Yeah. There you go. Wow. Great tunes. And on that note, this first song that we're going to jump into is called DIY or Die. Check it out.
I sing in houses and you sing for corporate. I know that one of us sucks. I can say and do what I want. DIY or die to me. Change the way you live your life. I sing with reverb and you sing with auto-tune. I don't like the way you sing. You just wanna be king, and I wanna sing. Change the way you sing your song. You sing for a lot of clout and I sing with a lot of doubt. Somehow we're all the same. You just sing for fame, and I sing to reclaim. Change the way you see yourself. And you said that you wouldn't sell out, pay to play for your name. And you said that you wouldn't sell out, pay to play for your fame. And you said that you wouldn't sell out, pay to play for your name. And you said that you wouldn't sell out, pay to play for your fame. I sing in houses and you sing for corporate. I know that one of us sucks. I can say and do what I want. DIY or die to me.
All right, that tune was called DIY or Die, and it is the second tune of the album A Stranger That You Met Before, A Day Without Love. You can get it at adaywithoutlove.bandcamp.com /album / stranger that you met before. Yeah, you get the idea. But it's on the Bandcamp full-length album, and you did it on Your Mom Records. Did it through Your Mom Records. How did you get, like, because they're based out of Chicago, right?
Yeah.
So how did that get on your radar?
Oh yeah, so it's a very organic thing that came out of the internet. So I don't know if it still exists, but there was this thing called Queers to the Front. And Queers to the Front, I don't know the history of it, but it was a collective run by this person named Maya. And Maya's mission was basically to make queer and marginalized creators have a voice in music, right? So I joined because I had a lot of different workshops. And like there was this one workshop where the singer of Destroy Boys was thinking about like how to organize for a tour during COVID. And I was like, that's interesting because like I'm recording this record. I'd like to tour more than I've already have. So like I met, the singer of Destroy Boys and Molly of Your Mom Records was on there. But Your Mom Records didn't exist yet. So like we were just yapping and Molly followed me on Twitter. And this is when like people use Twitter DMs to network instead of Instagram DMs.
Wow.
I was like, hey, I like a lot of what you said. I have this idea that I want to throw about you that I think is going to help you. And I was like, okay, cool. So like they told me about Your Mom Records, and I'm just thinking to myself like, yeah, that sounds tight. Like, sign me up, because I had already been on DIY labels before. Like, I worked with Sounds and Tones Records. They were based in Massachusetts, and that's also part of like how I ended up touring and living here, anyways. So then 2021 comes around, and that's when shows are coming back. I have this friend named Esther who was like working on a record, but also joined this band called Pink Squeeze. And I said, like, hey, dude, we haven't seen each other in a year and change. Can I come over just to vibe? And she's like, yeah, sure. So I like went on a friendcation, took a flight to Chicago, and then Molly saw that my friend Esther was going to host me. But little did I know that Esther and Molly knew each other, and I was like, what? That's really weird. So Molly's like, this is really weird, but can I pick you up from the airport? And I was like, yeah, sure. I was just going to take the subway. So she picked me up from the airport, and we like immediately became instant friends. And she told me like, yeah, I run a laugh, a lot of vinyl connections. Next thing you know, like I'm signed to a record label, and we have label names. So like it's a DIY effort, but it's happening. I'm the only one that's like out of town, but like at the same time, that doesn't really matter. So yeah.
Shout out to Chicago, man. I loved it up there. It's such a, I mean, it's obviously not underrated, but at the same time, I feel like it's an underrated city because like America is so East Coast, West Coast that often like, those cities like Minneapolis, Chicago, like they get overlooked. But man, Chicago is tight. I want to also talk to you because you're pretty active on social media, and this is becoming a bigger and bigger thing in the lives of DIY artists, whether you're a musician or a writer or whatever, is like just biting the bullet and figuring out how to have a presence on social media. And I would like to know, what is your relationship with social media? What is your goal? Like, do you intentionally do things, or are you just kind of like figuring it out, I guess?
True. Yeah, like I think today my relationship with social media is create and post with my intention that feels comfortable, but don't attach so much to the metrics of it. And I say that because like there have been many moments in my life that I've gone pseudo viral, whether it be articles, music, etc., etc. I've noticed that I don't really have control over this. I just have to keep being myself. And I know it doesn't sound like a good answer, but I say that because, especially after doing that tour, there are so many things that I wish I had someone with me to capture. Like, the driving in Montana and seeing a sign that says "Welcome to Bear Country," and then less than 5 minutes, I see a squad of bears and like bears fighting by like a porta potty and rest stop. Like that's crazy, but like I can only do so much, because if I stopped and took the camera, right, I also risk a bear chasing me. You know what I mean?
It's for the content.
Yeah, like, I'm not one of those. Like,
yeah, right.
There were also moments that I just took photos for myself, but I was like, I don't want to then become like the travel influencer. I'm just a musician. And like I used to post a lot of food, and then I just opened up a different Instagram for that, because I don't mind if people hit me up for food recs, but it got to a point where more people were asking me about food than music. So like
Right.
I think my intention is always like keep it about the life of being a touring musician and just music, but like be balanced with that. Something that I haven't done in a while, and that was because my microphone broke, is like post guitar videos or me singing. But I even have burnout with that because there's a lot of people posting covers, but it doesn't really lead anywhere. You know what I mean? So I just
Yeah.
kind of think of it like anime, like posting arcs. So I just finished the arc of posting like the videos and background to my collaborative EP log off.
Right. Yeah.
But for a full length record, I'm going to be a lot more intentional. Like I'm going to post the crap out of songs of Caffeine. I'm going to post the crap out of DIY or Die.
Mhm.
To this day, I still share when someone uses that song or those songs in general. So yeah, I definitely have a strategy, but it's not as robust as one might think. So yeah.
And on that note, like something that I also want to ask you, because you've kind of done both of these worlds, which is what seems to be going against each other now in the worlds of artists, which is touring and social media. Like a lot of people are like figuring out what is the better investment and what is the better like the most efficient way to like get your music out there. And I mean, I know a lot of bands, like booking a show with bands is like crazy, and getting band members to get into a car and to go, like everything feels like it's been getting just harder and harder. And even the last like 2-week tour that me and my band did, we got to this point where we were just like, dude, like this is just not what it was before the pandemic.
Yeah.
And so now I want to know for you, like in terms of intention and getting yourself out there and you know, getting people to listen to your music, how do you feel about like social media investment of time and action versus touring investment of time and action? Where do you feel like they hang in the balance, and moving forward, how do you feel about it?
You know, I think it's always better to invest in tours and live shows, regardless if it's regional, local, region, local. What's the for? Yeah, it's state driven, regional, and national, right? And then there's international. So I've done all four, right? And I really think it's much better to invest in touring than social media. And I say it because you want to be there for the people, not the algorithm. And I'm not saying that the people behind social media aren't people, but something I've learned that is a common thread for most musicians that are bigger than me is there's this level of social media burnout they have.
Yeah.
That I don't envy at all. And sometimes it's very Black Mirror-esque. I don't want to name names. We could talk those names like afterwards, but like I've opened up for them, or I've played the same festival with them, and I meet them and I feel like they signed a deal that they're afraid to share, and I don't want to be a part of that. That's why I think it's better to like grow organically and slowly, because I do know that there are a population of people bigger than me, because it's not all doom and gloom, that they got to the where they're at because of shows, and social media was a nudge, and that's what I crave. That's what I've also noticed I experienced, because like even that 50 state tour, like social media helped that, but at the end of the day, the connections from gigging, from making friends, is what got me those shows. Like I'll use 4 states as an example right now. The only reason why I was able to play Wyoming is because I played a festival in Delaware and I collaborated with someone in Philly who happened to have a. You got what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they met at post, but I still reached out to them in person. The only reason why I was able to play Delaware again is because someone I played with in Philly was able to tell me about the venues in Wilmington.
Right.
The only reason why I was able to play in Alaska is because someone I met at a music festival in Vermont happened to have a connection in Alaska, you know. and then those Alaska Connects referred me to the person. The only reason I was able to play in Hawaii is because a homie that I met in Massachusetts that I played some open mics and shows with happens to be Hawaiian. You know what I mean? And I only use those because those were the hardest states.
Right.
But the bottom, I could go state for state for state for state, and then if we did a percentage of how many of those were because of shows you played before and how many of those were because of a social media post, I'm going to say it right now. 0% of what I've shared was because of a social media post. It was all because I met someone who knew someone, you know, and that's why I say it's better to invest in touring. And then even the attendees, like some of them did like show up because of my social media content, but a lot of them showed up is because someone told them because they saw me in person and so forth and so forth.
Sure.
My favorite example of this is my first time playing a house show in Montreal. I'm in Montreal, Quebec, right?
Sure.
Played a show. The reason why I got that Montreal, Quebec show is because another friend played at the same house and they told me, hey, since you live close to Montreal, you should hit up this guy. So I hit up the guy, booked the show, played it. He had announced my UK dates. And I go to the UK and I'm in Northern Ireland. No, I'm in Dublin. This person goes, hey, the only reason why I came to your show is because my ex told me about you and my saw you in London. So think about that, you know? Like I played to this person's ex and their current partner in 2 different cities on 2 different sides of the world, and then I'm in Ireland. Mm-hmm. And they come to my show and say, hey, I met you too. Mm-hmm. And I feel that you always got to put the people first. Like, whether you want to cosplay something for Halloween, make these songs about Christmas, like, that's good and well. People are going to connect. But, like, nothing's more real than people in a house in seats at an art space or whatever. And that's why I say, like, to be community focused isn't always making friends and keeping to that 5 friends. To be community focused is, like, putting your music in, like, the thrift store, putting in your queer space, coffee shop, things like that, because that does more payback than that does more payback than whatever your social media is doing. Because I've also put shows where people have 200 followers because of that one post, and they don't know how to connect with people. So like, I don't envy that. So
yeah. It seemed to be like before the pandemic, even in like the 2010s, we'll say, like from 2010 to 2019, I was kind of in my 20s, so it could just be the circles that I was running with, especially in New York City. But it felt like the common consensus for a band was to just play as many shows as you can. And even if you were like, I was in New York, it didn't matter. Like, you would play 3 shows at least a month in New York, like just in different places, because Manhattan and Brooklyn and Queens, they might as well be 3 different cities, right? So,
big fact.
So and even in Philly, like, there's a lot of bands here that still kind of have that like mentality, and I think post the pandemic there was this mentality of like everybody just wants to play again, right? So everyone's just booking shows, and now it feels like, and maybe you can shed some light on this, it feels like now there are so many shows and so many bands that it's almost like we're falling backward a little bit in terms of like the promotion and the intention that bands and communities and music scenes are putting behind shows is like next to nothing, because it's like quantity over quality. And I feel like now the tide is starting to turn where it's like we should maybe start playing less shows and promoting the shows more and valuing the shows as a collected effort. You know, the bands are doing their part in getting the word out there, not even just on the internet, but like things you were saying, going to coffee shops, going to record stores, putting the flyer up, handing it out, talking to people. I mean, my dad was telling me, he was just like, I think you guys need to go back to the way it was in the 80s, where you're putting flyers under windshield wipers. You know, people don't even think like that anymore. It's, you know, so how do you feel about that? Do you feel like we're getting back to this place of quality over quantity, or do you think the mindset should just be like, get out there and play as much as you can?
I think it really depends on the intention. Like, they're both valid. Like, for me, I'm in a weird process where, like, I only have 4 records left. And, like, wow. I could be a t-shirt salesman. Like, you know what I mean? Or I could write some songs and then make more records. Because, like, I feel that 2 things that need to be known is, like, you don't want to be a musician where you have more model photos, like, from photo shoots than you do have music. I'm telling you, right?
Yeah.
It's out there. And you also don't want to be a person who has more immersed than you have music, right? So, and that's why I always say, like, take your time with this stuff. So, I think, like, there's value in the quality promotion with your show, but also try to find a way to do that consistently. And what I mean by that is, like, there's a brand of artists that plays like 5 shows a year in the same city and they don't go anywhere, right? And that is okay if that's what your bandwidth is. I think the problem is like, you inadvertently become a gatekeeper because you're only playing with these curated acts. I shout out Johnny Brenda's acts. Like, a lot of those people only play Johnny Brenda's. And I'm not saying that because that's the only venue I haven't played in Philly. I'm just saying, I'm calling it for what it is. And I think there's another thing to be said about someone who plays a bunch of shows that are relatively good. Like, hey, I played this one show, you know, Grace Ferry Skate Park was for, like, Planned Parenthood. And then I trekked up to Lancaster, played a show with the Amish Federation of Freedom, which is making up a charity right at this point. And then, like, you know, and then I went to North Jersey, and then that's a tour. And then that was, like, your thing that you promoted your EP or LP with.
Right.
Like, I think that's the happy medium of doing that. But I definitely think you have to think to yourself, like, what type of people do I want to attract? What, by taking up space, what am I doing, good or bad? You know, and then thirdly, I'm making my ends meet. Am I working at a place where, like, I'm overworking or underworking? So I think those are things that you should really think about.
Yeah, I think it's also, like, part of my question too, and it's amazing that you picked it up too, was along with the, like, promotion aspect, it feels like some of the best shows are shows that are community efforts, that are benefit shows. And it's like, if we're not, as artists, like, whatever money you make, if you're splitting it between 4 bands and then members of the bands, like, you're making next to nothing, probably in most cases anyway. So it's like, we might as well make this effort go towards a community thing, whether it's benefiting the space or whatever. And yeah, like, that to me is something that I think it goes back to what you said before, when you said you're doing things in arcs. So maybe there's going to be an arc. Like, I think for a lot of bands after the pandemic, the arc was just like play. And now that, like, we're, and I think audiences have not exactly been aligning, because I go to some shows and I'm just like, there should be so many more people here, like, even bigger acts, major label acts playing in big places, you know, Union Transfer, Underground Arts, you know, Bowery Ballroom in New York City. Like, there's big places, and I'm just like, there should be more people here, but it's not getting promoted, and especially at the local level, it's not getting promoted. So I think like you said, yeah, you have to look at your merch inventory. If you have a lot of merch, you should probably be playing shows.
You try to play exactly, like that's kind of how I look at it for a couple of reasons. But first, I'd like to talk about the promoting thing. So like this might sound very left field, but I do have friends in like hip hop and EDM. I think something that they do that DIY doesn't do enough of is a lot of the like flyering on cars, going to other shows and flyering and things. Like I think part of like why you don't see that too much in punk or in DIY genres is partially privilege. Like there's this thought that like, hey, I have enough friends that will show up, but it's like, well, actually those friends aren't going to show up, you know?
Yeah, and they don't want to see the same set that they saw 10 times already.
First thing. Yeah, secondly, to rely on just the one community is very narrow-minded, and if you are truly for diversity, you should do some different varying levels of like reach out. And if you can't do it, get someone to do it, right? And then third, I think there's an over-reliance on the internet in DIY versus in hip-hop. It's the internet and the streets, you know what I mean? And there are places where you could do that. Like, you can go to a DIY rock record store and post a flyer. You can go to a coffee shop and post a flyer. And you don't have to do it at every show. You have to like communicate that with like each show. Like, how does this work? Are people doing this? Because like, you know, for almost every show I played, not just on this tour, but just in my life, I try to ask like, hey, is there like a vendor? Is there a charity that's a part of this? Is there like, you know, things like that? Like, and I think that's really the way to be community minded on a promotional level. And then on like the collaboration point where you were saying is like, this is going to sound really funny, but I'm serious. The world's fucked up enough where we could find charities to help. You know what I mean? There's enough problems, and like there's almost like no excuse to like hit up a nonprofit, hit up someone who's gone through some stuff, and like give them a platform too. So
yeah, and it's ironic that bands are worse at doing this types of stuff. Because there's multiple people that these things can get delegated to, and it just I think this is hopefully this is some free game and a crash course for a lot of bands like that we need to like step up and just not really just sign off on a show like, oh, we're gonna play this place on a Thursday, like let's see who shows up. It's like, no, like, you know, like let's make something of it. And if you're in the stage of playing shows and you're releasing new music, like that's your arc of, I guess, social media, and then playing maybe few shows, you know, because you're just promoting your new music. And every day you get on social media, listen to my song. And then it's like, okay, then when you have an album, then it's the arc of play shows, sell merch. Maybe that's a good solution, a happy medium. All right, let's jump into another tune here. I'm getting a whiff of it right now because I'm hitting my tea. This tune is called Caffeine. Check it out.
So I could pave my way. Caffeine dreams running on steam.
All right, that tune was called Caffeine, and the album is A Stranger That You Met Before. You can go to adaywithoutlove.bandcamp.com. You can also go to adaywithoutlove.com, where you will find cool stuff, merch, poetry. I think there's some mugs on there. There's some stocking stuffers that you can maybe take a look at, as we are now in the holiday season, according to Mariah Carey. But I want to bring this back to A Stranger That You Met Before. Let's talk a little bit about this record. First, what do you feel like? Well, actually, even before I ask this question, a lot of these songs, and now hearing the background, with the 50 State tour and where it comes from, a lot of these songs on this record, it just feels like there's a story underneath almost all of them. Like, this is like, there's weight to them, there's density. So I wanted to ask, which song on this record do you feel like is the most meaningful to you? Or maybe just your favorite song from the record?
Certainly. That always changes. I would say
Nice.
The most meaningful is one I don't even play, and it's only because it sounds dumb solo, but it's Day to Day, and the reason why it's the most meaning for me is because I don't think music is something you do in spurts. It's something you do every day, whether that be a lyric, dropping a voice memo, practicing, some technique, practicing a new song, learning a song, and so forth and so forth. And I think when it comes to my tour life, my gig life, music is something we do every day, and so is networking in some capacity. Like you and I are talking.
Sure.
We're vibing and all that stuff. I say it's the most meaningful, not just to me, is because I wrote the title "A Stranger That You Met Before" in reference to the fact that, most places I go as a musician or not as a musician, I'm told, hey, I feel very comfortable with you, or I feel like you're somebody I've met before. So I titled that because I said day to day, whether I'm sad, whether I'm lonely, happy, ecstatic, regardless of these feelings, good or bad, I'm going to make sure I put in effort to be what I want to be day to day. And that's kind of what I tell other people, Billboard, Grammy, Spotify, Apple, all those charts aside, we're really here for the people, places, and things. The people we meet, the places we play, the things we bring to the table and get from the table to experience a better life.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, as you were talking, it sort of occurred to me with this record too, A Stranger That You Met Before. When we go to all of these, when you're touring 50 states, you're in the world of strangers. But then at the same time, when you're in these music spaces, it's we're in familiar environments,
Yep.
So I guess it also kind of translates to that, because you're going to the same place in different costumes almost. So it's cool to have that vibe as well. And also, so that's the album that we're shining a light on today. And your most recent release is an EP called Log Off. What could you just tell us briefly about Log Off? Because it came out a couple days ago, or a month ago?
About a month ago. Yeah, about a month ago. And I'm dropping some more singles and a 2-song split over for the year's over.
Right.
But Log Off came out of a lot of discussions with friends of microaggressions that are not tangible, you feel it, but it's there, but you don't always see the person behind the screen. And I'm a big believer of, if you have a problem, write about it. You know, like no need to like hit the keyboard wars, you know. Uh, you know, I talked to my friend Val, who's a longtime collaborator and friend, because we had like I had done like guest verses on some of their songs in the past. I said to her like, why don't we like write this EP where it's like full punk chords, hip hop verses, right? So like that's how the idea came from. So I said like first was like 2003. That was the first song we wrote, and we wrote that in February. I was like, this sounds very sad boy, but I don't know what to do with it. And then we did 4 dates in California, but I stayed there for 5 days. This full U.S. tour. Then the rest of it just kind of wrote itself,
Right.
based on conversations we were having. So like that was the writing process. Like we just wrote it, but the intent of the record is kind of just like be kind to each other. Like I know it's written very aggressively, but it's kind of written with the whole point of like it might feel cool to have all these followers and like exercise judgment against each other, but at the end of the day, choose kindness instead, because it's much better to be kind than it is to log on and be a douche. Yeah.
And be popular. Right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I something that I pick on a lot from you is how much you value humanness over all of these things that have sort of infiltrated their way into art spaces, which are kind of inhuman in a way. And I think that that's really cool, and I really hope people are taking note of this, because I feel like this episode has been such a crash course on how to be a better artist, and that's sort of the point here. And you know, I guess the last question I want to ask you, in that spirit of being a better artist and how we can keep a creative lifestyle, a big thing that is circulating amongst artists is this universal basic income that Ireland has established. I'm not sure if you've caught wind of this, but Ireland is starting this precedent of giving artists like, I don't know, $1,500 a month or something to create. And I don't know if that's ever something that's going to happen in America. I like the best we're going to get is these grants that everybody is scraping and clawing each other over. But my question for you, with all of this being said, is what do you think artists really need?
I think we need standardization. And what I mean by that is there's this lack of belief that we're valid. And what I mean by that is like we have movements where photographers can go to a union and talk about photography. Painters have a union. Actors have a union. They even have guilds, right? And currently, as musicians, we have UMAW, but respectfully, they only care about Spotify and Ticketmaster. And I think the toxic side of that is we're standardizing and using the metric of you're a musician if you're playing Ticketmaster shows. You're a musician if you're profiting off of Spotify. But you and I know that's not true. And I think there needs to be standardization around how much a musician gets paid. There needs to be standardization around how much a producer charges a musician. There needs to be standardization around how much a photographer can rationally charge a musician $200 per show when the show pays $200. That doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? And the counter argument should never be, well, I'm a living photographer. Well, I'm also a human too.
Right.
And same thing for all the other stakeholders. And right now we're living in a structure where everyone gets paid but the person creating the music. And it's like, we are the laborers. And I think laborers' rights starts with standardization, because I think the only reason why I've survived is partially credit debt, which I need to pay. The other part is like God. Like, I would just keep it real. Like, God is the only one that I can say is really like, look out for me. Because yeah, I've made money, but I haven't made money enough to say like I'm thriving. I'm surviving. I'm very much surviving.
Yeah.
There's a difference. And I'm not unique. I'm not unique in that. And I really think what musicians need, like UBI is a start, but there needs to be some standardized metric of, you know, and it's not based on your pull, because I will say this, I don't think anyone really knows what their pull is. Like, you could write any number. I don't know what my pull is, and I've played the world.
Yeah.
I think most musicians, unless you have some level of narcissism, you don't really know who's showing up for you, no matter how you're doing. You know what I mean? So yeah, I really think it's just about lies in that.
Yeah, I on that level too. It's like if without Medicaid, I would be so like, I don't even know what I would be doing. I would just like, I wouldn't afford to do this. And I really wish there was like more, you know, government assistance for this type of stuff. But I think also, to add on to what you said, something that I think artists and musicians need to do more of is like helping out somebody that's not going to necessarily pull you to the next level. And it doesn't matter where a band is. If you've been a band for a while, there's a band that's trying to get to where you're at, you know, with experiences and stuff like that. And there's a lot of bands that are good examples that have made it to a certain level, and instead of gatekeeping, they're holding the door open and they're trying to bring, you know, their friends or community people like along with them. And then there's like examples of bands that like really haven't, like, they could be doing so much more. Even really big, like, you know, like even a band like Metallica, right? Like, there is like so much that band could do for music, and they just continue to just kind of rake in money for themselves. And it's just like, man, you guys could be doing so much more for the community. And there's, you know, and even at a smaller level where it's like bands that have been doing, you know, DIY booking for 10 years, if a new band reaches out to them, they're just like, oh, I'm not going to play with this new band, you know, because they're not going to help me get to the, you know, the next level of venues that I want to play at or whatever. But I just feel like there should be a precedent of bands that are always looking to like uplift, and it just doesn't feel like that anymore. I need less competition and more community out of music artists.
I really like what you say about that, because I think one of the biggest dichotomies or hypocrisies of music is many of us claim we're socialist, we're anti-capitalist, but our actions aren't showing that. And I think a lot of that lies in survivorship, because people are just trying to get their needs met, because historically they haven't gotten their needs met. But I feel like more of your needs will be met the less you think about yourself. I know that sounds really weird to say, but like, you know, I did a 50-state tour. During that tour, I was told that I have to move out of my apartment because my roommate is going to move in with his girlfriend. On top of that, my roommate says, I don't want to screw you over. I'll find a roommate. He didn't find a roommate. So I had to scramble and gamble between the money I'm making, which I could have saved, to pay rent that I could have not paid if you told me this sooner. You know,
to pay rent for an apartment that you're not even in right now.
Yeah, and then pay rent again to this new place. So I was like, that's why I say it's God, because like, and it's people, because I was able to make that because I'm talking to you in this new apartment, right? And jobs lined up that then rejected me due to the government shutdown, due to loss of budget and things like that. And now this week I have 2 shows and I'm door dashing just to like get by and survive. And then when I have a job, I'll still have 3 sources of income, which will then allow me to be a lot more flexible about all the stuff. Like, yeah, UBI would help, but the thing that is like standardization. Like, I can't ever, like, the most I've ever made at a show is $1,800. The least I've ever made at a show is 0, right? If I could standardize making $1,800 every show, I don't have to do anything anymore. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, like, no one can guarantee that. And I know the metric is always ticket sales. But it doesn't take away from, there's ticket sales, but then what about your liquor sales? What about your other entertainment sales? And why is that only going to half the pie? It never goes to the artist. And that's the part, well, it sometimes goes to the artist, but that's the part that kind of frustrates me about the music industry. And also, why aren't we doing that, not just for ourselves, but for each other?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And and it, like, I think it also requires bigger artists to do things for the small communities, and not a lot of them are, not enough of them are. You know, when Neil, oh my God, I was about to say Neil Diamond, not Neil Diamond, Neil Young. When Neil Young pulled out of Spotify, I thought, this is it. Big artists are gonna follow suit, and nobody did. They just fucking just kept it there. And it's not like, you know, I guess a lot of artists don't own their music technically and they can't do anything about it, but it's just like, it feels like the artists that could do things about this aren't. And like, they're not even speaking on it.
Yeah, that has a lot of red tape over it. Like, for me, I feel like I'm at an ethical stalemate, which is why I haven't done anything yet. Shared about that, but it didn't get much traction, which I have opinions about. But I feel that it's not so much about, like you said, the actual pulling music off Spotify. It's more about, where are we unified? You know, where are we standardized? Because I wouldn't be surprised if there's an NDA towards certain levels of musicians where they get paid to keep their music on a catalog on top of the metrics of how well the songs do. You know, and the reason why they don't speak up is because they benefit out of it. It's a shame, but it's true. Yeah.
Not much you could do, but yeah, amazing stuff. daywithoutlove.com. I really interested in this poetry book. We got poetry, we got sweatshirts, we got all types of cool merch on there, and a new album even incoming, which is cool news. This last tune, this is a great one. This tune is called Good Friends Are Hard to Find. Brian, thank you so much for coming on the show. Stay creative, Rip On, everybody.
I think I struck gold, yes I'm lying. Some things are hard to find, and I found something. We're on the same page, living a different story. You complete me, I'm no longer empty. The glass is full. You came to me like a walk in the park. We could do whatever we want. Good friends are hard to find. 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 And you're looking at me, and I'm looking at you. I like the way we sing the blues. I'm not an island. I look at your back and I look at your past. I'm no longer vulnerable. came to me like a walk in the park. We can do whatever we want. Good friends are hard to find. 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 You came to me when I was alone. You make me feel at home. Here we go. Good friends are hard to find. 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 I think I struck gold, yes I'm hiding. Some things are hard to find and I found you.